Five, four, three, two, one. Tactical 16 radio. Fire in the hole! With Silent J.
Hi, everybody. This is Tactical 16 Radio, and I am Silent J. Hold on, let me turn my headphones up. There we go. Like I said, this is Tactical 16 Radio, and I am Silent J. Thank you so all very much for being here, listening live and watching on YouTube. We got a couple special guests tonight. Right now on the line with me, I got Cody Knotts. He's a filmmaker from the greater Pittsburgh area. And it's a funny story. Eric, the CEO of Tactical 16, emailed me last week and said, "Hey, you want to get this? You want to get a wrestler on?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you know who Shane Douglas is?" I'm like, "Yes, I know. Yes, I've spent a better part of the 90s wanting to be one Mr. Shane Douglas, who I call the Steel City Badass. That guy was something else, is something else." And I was given Cody Knox's email address to get a hold of him, and I have Cody on the line right now. So between Eric and Cody, there are a couple middlemen that did this, that hooked this up, and it came through. So Cody, thank you very much for being on. Your own self, in your own right, I think you're a fascinating individual because you're a filmmaker, and I am a budding filmmaker. So you, to me, you're pretty damn awesome.
I feel bad for you. Filmmaking, people think that it's, this wonderful, glamorous thing, and you spend a lot of time learning how to raise money. You spend a lot of time learning how to do everything but make a film. And, you do learn when you're, like anything, the more you do it, the mistakes you learn from. And I've made a whole bunch of mistakes, but I'm very, very happy with where things are going. We have a film coming out in September in the United States, June in England, Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, that had Shane Douglas. Nice. And it had Kurt Angle and Roddy Piper and Matt Hardy. So
okay. I heard about that some time ago. You're the man behind that. So you merged.
Yes.
You merged two of my three favorite topics, zombies and wrestling, into one. Damn, I've been wanting to see that ever since I first heard about it. This is pretty damn cool that I am actually speaking to the man that's behind that. So, hell yeah.
Yeah, it took almost 3 years of my life, and I'm happy. It's you hear that beeping. It's like my phone. I'm actually meeting with people today about a film we're working on going with post-traumatic stress disorder. Usually I do horror films, and so I have that film coming out, and it was a lot of fun, and Roddy and them were great to work with. And unfortunately, we did it all in 13 days, which is insane with stunts. It should have never been done in that few days, but we had a limited budget. And we're having a film come out in July called Gore Orphanage, and it is based on a high urban legend in the Cleveland area. So we're really excited about it. We've been actually getting more. We were voted most anticipated horror film of 2015 by Readers of Horror Society out of Chicago.
Oh, damn.
So we've been getting a lot of press on that. And it's very odd because my wife directed it. It's mainly female cast, and the response online has been 70% women. And that's not normal for horror, but obviously it deals with children, it deals with,
right.
And so women are drawn to it versus men. And so we're really excited about that. And so things are going very, very well. I've done 5 films so far, and the first one was god awful. Lucifer's Unholy Desire. You can find it on Amazon. It's really, really goofy. Gore Orphanage, Shane actually came in and worked on stunts one day, so that was kind of neat because he helped out. He was in my wedding. He's a dear, dear friend. That's why I laughed when you said wanting to be Shane Douglas. my wife knows nothing about wrestling, and at our wedding rehearsal dinner, Shane was signing autographs to people in the kitchen, and she said, "This is so bizarre." And I go, "Well, because to us, he's just Shane. He's Troy Martin. He's our friend, that calls us when his car breaks down, and it's just very odd when he's doing wrestling, even though I've gotten to work around wrestling now. So, which I never thought would happen. I'm 47 years old, and the last thing I think is that I get to work with professional wrestlers. But you want to be a filmmaker, don't do any of the things I've done. We did a no budget film with children as a period piece. We broke every rule you have within the film for orphanage, and it's working. The same with people told me nobody would ever work with the cast of wrestlers because they're notoriously difficult. They were easy to work with, the wrestlers. Mm-hmm. A lot of the indie wrestlers were not so easy. So that's they were great guys, but they're not as professional, they're not as disciplined, and some of the other people, we just had a lot of trouble in a 13-day period. And the big thing was the amount of days.
Yeah, and and I think that would be the case with anybody that's comfortable, on a stage or behind a microphone or in front of a camera, where it would be easier. Once in a while you do get a prima donna. It's the people that aren't there yet that think they're there. Like I've worked in comedy before. I thought I was hot shit as an open mic. And then, I got schooled by a real comedian. So I could see, the difference between like an indie wrestler and, and a legit, veteran seasoned pro wrestler. And in terms of.
Yeah, the biggest problem is raising money for film, and then how do you make money doing it? And because the system right now is broken. It's been that way for a while. The middlemen, the distributors, they take the money, they make the sale. It's not Comcast or Netflix, these people that are not paying the artist. They're paying the distributor, believing that part of that money is going to go back to the artist, and it never does.
Right.
So the people that invest in independent film don't see money. Nobody along the line sees money. And everybody's chasing a dream, and they're selling a dream, and I come from the world of politics originally. I ran for state house twice, and almost won both times. And this system doesn't make sense to me. If you were to make a product, I don't care what it is, and you sold it to Walmart, mittens, okay? Walmart's going to say, I'll pay you this much per one you deliver. You go, that's great. Now you figure out your cost, what it takes to make it, and you try and make a profit doing delivery it to them. In film, you make a film, the distributor says, you know what, I'll give you a no cash advance. Mm-hmm. And you sign a deal, and I get all the rights worldwide, every single right. And then I want sequels, and I want to be able to up hit in 10 years and keep control. And after I take off all my expenses, of which I'm not really going to account to you in any way that would be a reasonable accounting method, if there's any money left, I'll send it to you. You'll get 50-50 on the deal. You produced it, but after I take off my expenses. And all expenses come off of your 50%. So I hire an attorney to do work on it. It doesn't come off as an expense. It comes off of your 50%.
Yeah.
So you're paying for everything. No. And for the privilege of me then to sell it to someone else. And then I make a deal with them where I get a certain windfall. Yeah, but they pay me the windfall. I mean, this is where we're getting cheated as artists, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, and do you think now with that being said, like that's also something that the music industry is faced to a degree, in much the same way. Do you think it's a blessing, or do you think it's a negative for easier, I guess, possibly easier distribution in terms of like iTunes and Netflix and things of that nature, or is it? What's your opinion on being able to possibly skip a few levels and go to like a Netflix or an iTunes?
Well, I think it can be a blessing. The problem is that filmmakers don't think they have to get into the business side of the business. And I'll give you an example. I saw a film recently, and I don't want to say what it is because it's a beautiful film, absolutely beautiful, better than anything I've ever made. I'm looking at it. It won awards. It went to the film festivals. So I go, let's look at this film. I mean, this is really interesting. They said they had 160 people work on this. They had all, there's 160,000 man hours and all these things. And I'm looking at it. And I go, okay, let's see the trailer. Okay? How many people have viewed the trailer? 3,000 or 2,000. How many people liked it on Facebook? Now, this isn't sales. It's just like. Hit the like button. Under 1,000. Okay? Now I'm going to give you another example. This film had somebody who's well known in it that did it because they wanted to do it as an artistic piece. Okay, on a major TV show. Everything that should spell success. And they're now giving the film away for free online because they want people to see it so bad. And they spent $100,000 and lost it. Now I'll go the other route. We did Gore Orphanage. We did it for $27,000. Okay? We did a period piece with children. We have almost 6,000 likes, and we've just started. We have a premiere that we hope to make. We hope to have 2,000 people paid to be at the premiere. Okay? Which is incredible for an independent film.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay? Because we went in with a business plan of a localized, the marketing was done for us. Orphanage exists. It's a local legend. It's been there for over 100 years. We didn't do the marketing on it. That marketing's been done for 100 years for us. So we go in, we make the film, and we tap into this local legend. The people want to see it. Now should I pay a distributor to exactly the same people as I can in a localized area in the 19th biggest media market in America? No. We'll do it ourselves. We'll book the theaters, and we'll make the profit back to us. We'll deal one-on-one with these theaters and with these honest small businessmen, and we'll get a return on our investment. And that's that. And then we'll look at some video on demand deal or whatever, or we just put it on Amazon ourselves, like I did my first film, which is lousy, Lucifer's Unholy Desire.
But do you think
you really want to watch when I was 60 pounds heavier, and I'm in it briefly, and watch me cry? You can see me cry on screen.
Now,
but you also can see. No, go ahead.
Do you think that's? Do you think that your first movie is better than The Room or not? Because that's like that's like the measuring stick of crappy films.
But not from a market standpoint.
Well,
not from a market standpoint, from a film standpoint. Yes, it's not horrendous. I mean, it's boring, which is the kiss of death, because this is about emotion. Film is about emotion, and a boring film is the worst thing you can make. But one of our actresses became a state senator. Oh, nice. And so, I mean, they constantly bring it up because in it, she goes down to her underwear in it, and how many state senators do that. This is before she's a state senator. Very attractive woman. And so, her opponent tried to make an issue of it, and the public rejected it because it was stupid. Actresses, she wears less on the beach. But, politics is a dumb game.
I had a buddy of mine who ran for local politics in North Carolina, and to drum up support, he was part of an indie wrestling show, and he took a couple chair shots. As he was, I don't know how it was tied in. He was a tag team partner for somebody, and he got beat up. He took a few chair shots, and he lost the election. So, it could be worse. It can always be worse.
Well, I have these two films. I had a film that became part of Pennsylvania governor's race, which I'm embarrassed the hell about. I made for $5,400, which is about as cheap as you can make a film. And it's really awful. And the Republican Governors Association called it foul, and I'm a Republican. R.L. Stein said it was disgusting, and it was basically a really poorly made soul type film, but we got lots of attention from it. Which this is the thing that a lot of independent filmmakers don't think about. The idea, you are out there and there's literally 2,000, 3,000 films being made a year.
Yep.
By everybody. Studios making about 160. The other ones are being made by these independent things. You have the Bollywood films. You have all this stuff going on, and you've got to stand out. We have been fortunate that other than Lucifer's, we have managed to make people notice us, having new and original ideas. And we're working on one right now, which I can't talk about, that I think could be the best thing we've made. Now, I'm working on this PTSD film that Rob Radis is doing, and that's actually, I have to go in and meet with them. They're texting me. That's what those beats are, that they're inside.
Oh, nice.
But it's beautiful. It's absolutely a beautiful piece of work. And I'm excited as heck about it. But we're hoping to put together a film fund. That's what we're meeting about tonight.
Oh, okay, nice. Okay.
To do films about U.S. military, specifically to be able to put out films that look at history honestly. I've written a script, and it's my dream script, about Rose Greenhow, who was the top Confederate spy in the Civil War, and about her relationship with William Seward, which was known at the time and has been forgotten. Lincoln himself said that if I want to know what's going on in my cabinet, I need to ask Mrs. Greenhow. Well, Mrs. Greenhow had both been Confederate. She was Calhoun's right-hand woman. She walked in his funeral. She was Stephen Douglas's aunt, and she was sleeping with William Seward and Chase while the war was going on, and she was handing the information over to the South, and they were readily giving it up. And in the end, they blame another member of, not a member of the cabinet, but another senator, and they make it look like it's him that was with Greenhow. Lincoln puts her in prison, can't try her because she says she'll tell everything, honestly, and puts her in prison with her 9-year-old daughter and has people pay admission to see this woman in prison. And this is the Lincoln that really was, not the Lincoln that Stanton built to be like Christ. And this is not a pro-Confederate film. This is a film that's trying to look at both sides honestly, because if Seward would have been exposed on this, North would have lost the war. So the one person who could have delivered victory to the South was a woman. And a woman who Alan Pinkerton said, had superhuman powers of seduction. That was in his report to Lincoln. Now, they had to put men or women on her because she seduced every man that guarded her.
You gotta wonder just how good is something.
My wife has portrayed her all over the country for the Spy Museum and for there's a for the National Park. But the film, and why it's my dream film, is we look at a lot of issues. Most people do not realize that John Brown, as part of his raid, seized George Washington's sword because he believed it had holy powers, and he sent people and forced George Washington's great nephew, who was still alive, was part of the Washington clan, to go down on bended knee and hand Washington's sword to a free black man. The image of that has never been shown. Dred Scott has never been shown, and we have him in the script, has never been shown in American history on film. And most people don't realize when Dred Scott lost the case, that the person who ended up owning him was an abolitionist congressman who didn't know his wife owned Dred Scott. And rather than release him, this is the hypocrisy of what went on in politics at the time. Rather than release him, he sold him for a profit.
That's interesting. That I did not know. I love history. My stepfather was a history teacher, and that I didn't even know. No,
it's been because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
What we get is propaganda. We don't get truth. And we have two scenes where we take a liberty to explain something we're not sure of. The rest of the time we research the film, I met with someone and they said, this is an Oscar-winning type film, if you can get it made, if someone's bold enough to do it because it's going to challenge all sides.
Right.
It's going to make the people who are down there waving Confederate flags uneasy. It's going to make the people that sit around saying, you know, Lincoln's a great emancipator and he did no wrong. I mean, you had Steven Spielberg make a film in Lincoln that absolutely lied about the bribery that took place to pass that amendment. Why lie about it? It's what Lincoln had to do. Thaddeus Stevens said the greatest act of the American government was done by the most nefarious of means. Mm-hmm. And he was in favor of Lincoln doing it. There's nothing wrong that Lincoln had to go and bribe these congressmen to get them to vote the right way. He did the right thing. Slavery had to end.
Yep.
Why do we have to lie about it and pretend he didn't bribe them?
Yeah, and that's
still, for anybody.
Yeah, and it's nothing new. You know, there's still, you know, we could go off on something else, you know, all night. There's still lying and bribing in politics for, you know, for the greater good. You know, sometimes it's.
But you can make it. Look at Robert Redford. Robert Redford made a brilliant film telling the story of Mary Surratt. Honestly, not that she's a good person, and it's not good or bad. People believe they're doing right. Mary Surratt was unfairly tried, whether what she did was wrong or not. And that's what's so amazing about Robert Redford having the guts to tell that story honestly in Conspirator. Mm-hmm. And it's a brilliantly made film on every level. The clothes are properly made. It's how people actually dress instead of how Hollywood makes it look. Everything about that film was done to make it as accurate as possible, but still a compelling story. And we need to be doing more of that. And you know, I'm a conservative. I'm more moderate, but this swing, Robert Redford's on the left, these people on the right. No, I mean, he cared about human rights. Unfortunately, I've got to fly in here because these people have now waited for me for 20 minutes.
Hey,
so I better go in and
do what you got to do, man. And hey, thanks for being on and hooking up everything with Shane. And by the way, you're more than welcome to come on again in the future. I'd love to talk to you.
I would love to
for a whole entire show. So
cool. I'm more than willing to do it. All right, I'll see you, man.
All right, man. Take care.
What?
That is and always will be Cody Knotts, filmmaker from the greater Pittsburgh area. He's also a friend of one Shane Douglas, ECW legend, and he is the filmmaker of Zombies vs. Wrestlers. And he's working on a PTSD film now, which is of great importance to me, being a veteran, dealing with PTSD. That's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, you know, and everybody that's got to deal with me, you know, everybody around me. So cool being able to talk to him. I didn't think this was going to happen. Didn't really hear anything back from him. I thought, I don't know, in my mind, I thought I emailed the wrong person, but I did not. So yay me for emailing the right person. Then I get a phone call like 15 minutes before the show from Cody, and then all hell's breaking loose to try to get everything set up and whatnot. And had I known that he was actually going to be on and Shane Douglas as well is going to be on, I would have promoted the show a little bit better. But I shouldn't have to promote the show a little bit better because the show is what it is, okay? And it is greatness. It's a great show. It's a great damn show. It's a great day, except for weather-wise on the west coast of New York, a.k.a. the greater Buffalo metro region, is cold. And yeah, go figure. It's halfway to snow right now. I don't know what that is. Sleet, maybe? I just hate with the weather. I feel like what's his name from Fargo? I just got shot in the fucking face. That's what I feel like. That's what I feel like right now. I just feel like I got shot in the face with something. You should see the other guy. But anyway, right now I do believe we have one Shane Douglas on the line right now. Shane, how you doing, my friend?
Good, son. Jay, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good. Listen, I just got to say, for one, I didn't think this was going to happen. I thought this was my buddies messing with me last week. And because I get a inconspicuous email from your friend Cody's friend, who's my business associate, Eric,
Yep.
and he's out in Colorado. He's originally from the Pittsburgh area, and he's like, "Hey, you want to have Shane Douglas on your show next week?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And he goes, "Email this," and I emailed this Cody that I don't know. And sure enough, I was just telling the story like 20 minutes before the show. Cody gets a hold of me and, holy shit, you guys are telling the truth. So I have to call my business associate after the show and apologize vigorously.
Go on the beer.
Yeah, well, yeah, I gotta apologize because I've been mother effing them in my mind for the last week. But anyway, let's give you a proper introduction now. This is Shane Douglas on the line, legendary wrestler, and also actor now, and any other thing he's ever wanted to do, I'm pretty sure he is, because he is, like I said, I started calling you this in the 90s, being a big fan of ECW, the Pittsburgh badass, Shane Douglas. So, Shane, I've been a fan of you for years, from just watching you. I'm a big fan of wrestling. Always have been, always will be. And you
Same here.
Yeah, you more so. I tried it one time. I got power bombed, and I said, "No, that's it. No, no more. I'm too skinny for that." So you were one of the guys I gravitated to as a fan, just out of passion. And it seemed like you oozed passion in what you were putting out there. So as a fan, I want to say thank you for being real. You know what I mean?
Well, I always tell fans the same thing. I hear this often, and it's very humbling because as a young snot-nosed kid that was breaking into wrestling, I was on an interview earlier today with Steve Austin, and I said I can remember Mick Foley and I at Dominic DeNucci's school.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds ludicrous today because of what we've accomplished, but neither of us believed that we had the goods to be professional wrestlers. We knew we liked it, and we knew we were okay at it.
Mm-hmm.
But neither of us even ever thought of, at that point, becoming professional wrestlers because we quite honestly didn't believe we were good enough. And but I can honestly say Mick and I both, and there were a couple of guys in the school, a guy by the name of Dave Klabansky and a guy by the name of Mark Keenan, who wrestled later as Cody Michaels and had some modicum of success before he broke his neck.
Mm-hmm.
We were extraordinarily passionate about wrestling. We loved it. We ate, slept, and breathed it. And to know that somebody, yourself included, paid attention over those years to a moron like me is humbling, and I'm thankful for it. You know, it's fans come up all the time at conventions and signings, and they'll say, "Hey, thank you, for all you." And for me, it wouldn't have mattered. I always tell the fans on the road, it wouldn't have mattered if nobody watched. And the fact that I was able to garner some level of success with the fans seeing that passion is very rewarding to me. So thank you for paying attention and watching.
I thank you. And you know what? My mom called me a moron for watching you. Because my mom was not a fan, and I'd have to stay up late in Buffalo growing up watching ECW. And I think it would come on at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning on like Empire Sports or MSG. And she's like, she'd wake up, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm watching and then she would see it. And no. One time she took the cord from the TV to bed with her. So that's how fed up she was with me and wrestling. And I moved out not too much longer after that. Well, you know what? I'm getting my own TV cord. So.
Were you ever at any of the shows at the Burt Flickinger Center?
Yeah. I watched my very first show at the Burt Flickinger Center, watching you, actually. And my best friend was with me. I don't know if this is the show we went to or another show he went to, but he ended up getting one of Sandman's canes. And
really?
Yeah, like drunk idiots, we tried it out one night in the living room. And damn, that stuff that hurt. I'm not.
Yeah.
There's no like, okay, hit me in the spot where it won't hurt. It hurt everywhere. So yeah, I remember the Flickinger Center was an awesome place to watch a show, and
Buffalo was one of those places that the Flickinger Center that ECW really started making its mark. You know, we had always thought in our minds, we knew that we were a smaller company, and we knew that we had a very vociferous fan base, but we didn't know that we had that big of a fan base. And so when we started going to the Burt Flickinger Center and selling 3,000, 4,000, 4,500, 5,000 seats, we knew that the fan base we were gaining traction. And the Flickinger Center stands out in my mind as, first of all, it's just an incredible wrestling town. And secondly, the building itself was so ideally suited for wrestling that, you know, some of my fondest memories in ECW, I mean, obviously the arena stands out as the place. You know, Steve Austin said earlier, I say with all the love of my voice, the ECW arena was a shithole, but it was a magical shithole that we accomplished incredible things in. But the Burt Flickinger Center stands out as one of those first buildings, real buildings, that we went to and could sell thousands of seats. And so to all the fans in Buffalo, thank you, because that was sort of the Wednesday of ECW's week. You know, that was where we got over the hump, and we knew that we were downhill from there. And it was just a lot of fun in Buffalo.
Nice. Yeah. And yeah, what you said about like the arena, the ECW arena, that's, you know, that was like the grimy, gritty, you know, the place where you know, where stories and legends are made of. But like the Flickinger Center in Buffalo, it's like it's an arena. It's just smaller. It's for a community college. I'm actually a student at that school right now. Years later, in the twilights of my 30s, and it's perfect. Like you said, it's got a big feel to it, but it's small enough. It's intimate enough to where, you know, fans will go crazy. And I remember those shows. Yeah, we saw some good stuff there. But going away from that, when did you realize, training as a wrestler, when did you realize you had the ability to not only just be a wrestler, but be a very good wrestler and be somebody that the fans sought out?
Well, to be honest with you, I was quite a ways into my career. I never felt, even as world champion in ECW, I never felt like I had made it. There was never a point in my active in-ring career where I thought, okay, I'm here now. I'm the franchise. I can relax. Because I was always looking over my shoulder at a very talented roster. There was Taz, there was Tommy Dreamer, there was Raven, there was Sabu, there was Terry Funk, there was Sandman. I mean, there was 100 guys standing in line ready to go, okay, you can't do it, I will. And so I always used that as energy to build on. You know, I wasn't going to sit down and relax at the stage where I finally, in my head, made it and decide, okay, it's time to take it easy. But the point where Steve Austin asked it probably a little more concisely earlier today when I was talking to him, and he said, how long did it take you to really feel comfortable in the ring, to really feel in command? And I would say that it was probably about 7 years into my career, I started feeling that I was in command, and I didn't get that nauseous feeling that I would get in my pit of my gut before a match. I knew, I still, to this day, I still get butterflies before a match. You know, I want to go out and make sure I give the fans what they're paid for and live up to the level of what I've accomplished in the past. You know, it's much harder today at my age than it was in the past.
Right.
But at that point, I stopped getting the nauseous stomach turns before a match. About 7 years in.
Okay, and with that, when you said you started turning that corner, what did you notice in the ring after, you know, about that 7 year mark? Was it easier, you know, telling a story, putting a match together, executing, or just the overall, you know, like the buzz from the crowd? Like, when did you really know that it's like, okay, this is all clicking, and what did you see the most progress or the most, you know, the thing that stood out the most when you were able to get to that?
It's a great question. For me, there was never a point of, okay, I'm great enough now that I can sit back and relax. I never achieved that point in my career. I used to sit back and watch, you know, the Harley races and, you know, the Ric Flairs and the Ricky Steamboats and the Bruno Sammartinos, who seemed to go out and be able to do it effortlessly. It was like breathing to them. Much like Chris Candido did years later, and Chris Benoit.
Yep.
It just seemed to be an effortless, trivial thing to them that they could go out and execute these incredible matches and not have to work at it. And I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying it seemed effortless for them. But for me, what changed at the 7-year mark was that I knew going to the ring that if something gets off track tonight, as they all do almost every single night, if something goes wrong, if something goes askew, somebody gets hurt, I felt comfortable enough with myself that I could fix it, that I could cover it up and make the adjustments necessary to get the match through and entertain the fans. And that's really the crux of what professional wrestlers do, because injuries happen so often. You know, they're not, thankfully, serious injuries, but, you know, a sprained ankle, broken bone in the ankle or the wrist or in the arm or something, that if that happens, you know, in the previous 7 years, in the first 7 years of my career, if something like that would happen in the ring, I would panic. Like, oh shit, what am I going to do? How do I fix it? What do we do now? And your brain would start racing. At the 7-year mark, I got to the point where something like that would happen, my brain would calm down. I'm like, okay, what do we have to do to get it back on track? We've got to get through this match and finish the match for the fans. And instead of just saying, okay, let the referee call it and take the easy way out, I never allowed that to happen in my career after that. And you know, it's no small thing. You know, Steve Austin said it was about the same time frame for him. Our business is an incredibly intricate business when done properly. And I think one of my big criticisms of wrestling today is this attempt to paint by numbers. If Silent J goes out and does A, B, C, and D like Shane Douglas did, he'll be a star too. And there's no giving on that. It's just how the stars line up, and everybody comes with a different skill set. You know, I often say it to fans, you know, Picasso and Da Vinci were both incredible artists, both through very different paintings and art, but both were masters. And so you can't say, well, Da Vinci did it like this and Picasso should have done it the same way, because they had very different skill sets and very different ideas on what they saw as art. And the same as wrestling. You know, I don't want to elevate wrestling to something that it's not or try to make it more important than it's not. But I see wrestling when it's done well as being an art form. If you go back and watch a Ricky Steamboat match. Oh, yeah.
I was going to say earlier when you brought up his name, that's one guy that can make anything look effortlessly, but also, you know, like he made a wrist lock look, you wanted to watch it as a fan. You know, like, especially when things really started to turn up and, turn around in terms of, different styles of wrestling, especially when like, lucha wrestling was introduced, to the mainstream. You could still watch a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat match and still be mesmerized on how he was able to do that. And you bring up a good point, like anything done artistically, like I'm a fan of, whether it's a well-crafted whiskey or a show or something. If I know somebody put the effort into it and I know somebody put passion into it, no matter what it is, whether, like I said, whether it's wrestling or radio or whiskey or whatnot, I'm going to appreciate it more as a fan, as a consumer, or, as a viewer, because I know, there's real passion, there's real emotions, and you can tell when somebody really busts their ass. And, you just, as somebody who's taking in that art, it's more, it's a pleasant feeling knowing you're watching somebody's hard work and effort pay off. So that's, as a fan, watching somebody like you, I saw that. The guy next to me, I don't know, art is in, the eye of the beholder, but from what I saw from watching you, that's what drew me to you, was like, you made everything watchable and palatable and enjoyable. So thank you as a fan. Again, I want to say thank you.
Well,
so.
you mentioned Steamboat. That's where that came from. When I got at the key crux points of my career, when I broke in, I was fortunate enough to be trained by somebody that knew what the hell they were doing. Dominic DiNucci, world tag team champion multiple times, silver medalist in the Olympic trials for Italy in 1956, and would have gone to the Olympics and part done very well, except back then you had to pay your own way.
Yep.
And he came from a poor family, and that's why he emigrated to Canada at the time. But my introduction into wrestling, much like Mick Foley's and the other guys that I mentioned earlier, Dave Slobansky and Cody Michaels, we were introduced into wrestling by a guy who was, by my standards, a legend, Dominic DiNucci. And Bruno Sammartino would often stop by and, give pointers. And, there was one time when I asked him, as a kid going to the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, I used to always see the other wrestlers come out to the entranceway. This is years before, the technology that exists today where you can beam stuff around on your cell phone. And I never saw Bruno Sammartino watching the matches. I saw Chief Jay Strongbow, I saw Superstar Billy Graham, I saw Dominic DiNucci, Jumping Johnny DeFazio, the Valiant Brothers. I saw all of them, Crazy Lou Graham. I saw all of them out watching the matches. And I had never seen Bruno Sammartino. So years later, when I'm breaking into the business, and I met Bruno, I asked him, I told him that story. I said, I never saw you out watching the matches. In my head as a young man, I was telling myself, well, he's a champion. He must have a monitor or TV in his room, to watch it from. And I asked about that, and he said, no, I didn't have a TV, no monitor. I said, well, weren't you interested in what was going on in the ring? He said, of course I was. And I paid attention as closely as I could, but I never wanted the fans to see me. I said, why not? He said, always remember, Shane. At that point, I hadn't come up with Shane Douglas. I was still Troy Martin. He said, remember, kid, the fans will pay to see you. And he paused, and he said, once. The fans will pay to see you once. And they don't want to see you 10 times a night. Now, you compare that with what you've seen in wrestling for the last 10, 15, 18 years, where Shane Douglas is in segments 1, 4, 5, 6, and 9. And it's just an oversaturation that, nobody wants to see. When you see a movie, you want to see a scene one time. You don't want to see it over and over and over again at different points during the movie. And I always kept that with me because, let's face it, Bruno was moderately successful at professional wrestling.
Yeah, a little bit. I heard of him before. I was more of an Elio DiPaolo guy myself. But yeah, I heard Bruno was not too bad.
So to me, for a guy like that giving me advice, we were trained in the old school to keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open.
Yep.
And so if I want to ask somebody about a radio program, I'll call you and ask you. I've never done a radio program. So if you've done it for a week, you know more about it than I know. So I can learn something from you.
I've been doing it for 6 years, and I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing.
But obviously for guys like DiNucci and San Martino, and at that time other guys, friends of theirs, they had come to the shows, the Samoans and the Valiants and the Grahams and on and on and on. I would pick their brain as much as I could. I'd watch them intently, how they set their matches up, how they were executing in the ring, what they did when they came back. I even watched them how they put their gear back in their bag. I just wanted to saturate myself, soak everything that I could about this business. And luckily, like Steve and I were saying earlier, it was an opportunity for us because we came into wrestling during what is no doubt the glory years of professional wrestling. That the dressing room was loaded. Everybody in the dressing room was a star, a fantastic wrestler, and could execute and implement what they were doing. And so all you had to do is sit back and, like the old timers told you, keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open, and then you will learn.
Exactly.
And that's what we did.
Yeah, I'm in the military for 15 years, and the first time I deployed, I was, scared shitless. I was looking at the older guys, the guys that had already been, had been there before, and by the last time I deployed, I was that old guy, not in terms of age, but in terms of experience and knowledge and stuff. And it'd be the same thing I would tell my troops overseas. They just shut up, listen, watch. I'm not not going to steer you wrong. So for anybody out there who's budding anything, whether it's a wrestler, radio, soldier, actor, whatever the case may be, sometimes just shut up. Put your phone down, shut up, and open up your eyes, and you'll learn everything you need to learn. So
you know what, I always tell people, and I in no way mean this to be condescending, but if somebody wants to learn something, I could read every book I could get my hands on about, let's just say, ditch digging. I could read 1 million books on ditch digging. If I've never picked up a shovel and never dug a ditch, and you've been doing it for 30 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, then I can learn something from it. When I was a teacher, the first thing I did, my first day on the job, this is a true story, my first day on the job, at the end of the day, I took every textbook I had from teaching, all the classes I took to be a teacher, threw them in the garbage can, because they meant nothing. It was all theory in a book that some moron with a PhD sat and wrote, and they'd never taught in a classroom in his life or her life. Threw them in the garbage can. If somebody's done something, like you said, in any field, if somebody's done something, you want to learn about that field, ask them questions. You're going to learn.
Exactly. And I'm going to school right now, and I'm also interning for a filmmaker, and I've learned more just listening to him than I have in the last year of school. So yeah, all theory, and I have a PhD teaching me theory. Quite a bit of theory. So but I know exactly what you mean. And
theory means next to nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a theory. It's not a law. So what did you always want to be a wrestler? And I want to get into the teaching thing in a little bit, because my stepfather was a teacher. He was a history teacher. So I'm always fascinated with history and teaching and things like that. But what made you want to get into the wrestling business? Was it a love of it, or was it something, were you athletically inclined, or was it just something you stumbled upon?
Well, to be clear, I never wanted to be a pro wrestler, because I never thought I was good enough to be a pro wrestler. I said earlier, when Nick and I broke in, and I'm not saying that to sound trite, neither of us, we were good, at the local level, and, doing a Dominic Minchy show or whatever for, Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, or Lorain, Ohio. But we weren't anything like those guys on TV in our head. And, so for me, like looking back, I had never endeavored to be a wrestler. I always loved wrestling. I loved wrestling since I was 4 years old, and I've always loved watching it. Never believed I had any kind of a gift to be a professional wrestler. But when I graduated from college in 1986, I had quite a few school loans. I had $77,000 in school loans. That was like $77 million for me. I mean, it was an unquantifiable sum. There was no way in 10 lifetimes you could possibly pay back $77,000. And I had my deferment period. I think you have 6 months after you graduate. I'd always wanted to go back and get my master's degree and my PhD. Thankfully, I never did that, because most PhDs I've met are morons at what they start off about. But I graduated with this huge debt overhanging over my head, and my thought in college always was, I had a love of social sciences and history and political science, that I would graduate and go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the capital, or Washington, and at some point run for public office in my life. And that was my full training and thought. And when I graduated in 1986, the economy was in a bit of a slump. There weren't any jobs to be had, especially in that field. And a promoter called me, Bill Watts called me, actually his assistant, which was Eddie Gilbert, called me and offered me a position with UWF, Universal Wrestling Federation, which was previously called Mid-South. And I took the job only, Jay, because I thought I'll do this for 6, maybe 12 months, and start to pay my school loans back. And as soon as the economy picks up, I'll go to Harrisburg or Washington like I had originally planned. And
it's been a long 6 months.
Yeah. You know, something happened in the interim that I apparently was somewhat decent at what I did, and never looked back. And I've never been ungrateful or sour grapes on it. You know, I would have loved to have worked in Harrisburg or Washington. I've adored my career as a professional wrestler. The chance to interact with fans, the chance to entertain people. Like I said earlier, I don't want to put any special import to wrestling that it doesn't deserve, but I said in an interview one time, you know, something along the lines of, what we do in the overall scheme of the cosmos is not that important. And I got deluged with tweets and emails and Facebook postings from fans saying, look, you know, what you did was a little more important than that. You entertained us. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, you're giving people a chance to forget about, let's face it, life sucks. In the over and under, life sucks. And if you give people a chance to forget about that for 10, 15, 20 minutes a night, then I guess there's something a little more altruistic about that. And in that sense, I guess what we did as wrestlers was more important than I thought it was. And I'm thankful I've had that opportunity to do it, because I can't, looking back over my life, I can still distinctly remember the young guy that came out of college, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else than being a professional wrestler. You know, this is what I think I was born to do, and I've enjoyed every level of it, and I've enjoyed every fan that's ever paid attention. I love it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. Last time I was overseas, there's a band, Social Distortion. I had an album of theirs, big fans of theirs. I would just play over and over and over again, and that I credit that album, one of their particular albums, to mentally getting me through my last deployment. It was kind of rough with personal stuff and, you know, professional things. The professional side, people wanted to blow me up, so I guess that kind of sucked. But that album kind of got me through, and I've always said, if I'm able and they're coming close to where I live to play a concert, I'm gladly going to see them and pay my money to go see them, just because, you know, they helped me through. So yeah, I could understand being a fan of something, whether it's wrestling or music or comedy. It's sometimes it does things to people, and you know, you should never take away what you do, you know, as an artist, because you don't know how positively it affects people at times.
I don't know those guys, but I tell you this, I know certainly as an entertainer, if you go to their show and you send a message backstage that you just said to me, beat those guys, because they'll come out and tell you that it's astounding to them that their music reached somebody at that level. That's to me, to an entertainer, I can't think of anything you say to somebody higher than that. You can say thank you, and you can say I've loved your career and all that kind of. It's all great. So say to somebody, especially in your situation, this helped get me through that shit. Yeah. And that's a huge, gigantic compliment to an artist.
Yeah, and I could definitely see you know somebody saying that in any realm. So you know, it's an enjoyable thing to share in something like that. Whether the person doing the work, you know, such as yourself, or somebody watching it, it's like it's a special thing. And you know, like you said, when you were younger, you've been a fan since you were 4 years old of wrestling, watching it. You share that in your own mind. You share that moment with that artist, with that performer, and you know, just it's the forever little kid in me. You know, like when I watch wrestling now, and my daughter watches it, she's going to be 9 in a couple months. And she's into wrestling now, and that's even cooler, because now, instead of just watching it, you know, myself with my collection, I got a collection of lucha masks, and I'm not a creep, I tell you. If we ever meet, don't please. I'm unassuming, but having my daughter sit down next to me and watching it, and we go to live events, and we go to shows, and we watch it on TVs, and we watch the papers. Maybe when she's older, I'll let her watch your body of work.
Yeah, not for a few years.
Yeah, I don't need her giving me the Pittsburgh plunge at 9 years old and telling me to F off. So I'm gonna hold off on that. But it's even better as a parent being able to share that, being able to share those moments. And I tell you, you guys, I was in a wrestling show one time to promote this show. I drove down to an independent show in North Carolina, South Carolina border, and I was the guest ring announcer. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, do you want to do something special? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. And my buddy was the one, he was kind of like the middleman helping me. And he goes, you want to, maybe you want to get knocked around? I'm like, you don't have to ask me twice. So I'm like, yeah, definitely. Well, there was a new heel, new bad guy in the territory. And they just wanted to make him look, ultimately despicable. So, what worse thing can you do than to beat up the guest ring announcer? And, the prep beforehand, I tell you what, and this is where I give it up to you and all your colleagues. The first time I hit that mat, wow. And this wasn't, this was a little dingy indie promotion in an armory. And I don't know if the technology changes too much in between mats, but this one, I tell you, this one, to me, hardest thing in the world. Damn, did it hurt. And like, hey, let's try that again. Let's work on that again. And I had some guys working with me. I had one of the managers working with me. He was like the evil, Slick. That's who he reminded me of. And power bomb after power bomb after power bomb. And then, okay, let's try a choke slam. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I tell you what, I was not coordinated enough for the choke slam. I thought that would be easy. No, not at all. Just that fear of like, I wanted to just like tuck, and so the power bomb it was. And then we tried something a little bit different on the fly during the match. And I took a power bomb off the top rope. And yeah, he was a big guy. He's, I'd say, about 6'5", 6'6". I'm 5'11", 170, 165. Yeah. He was a big boy. He took so much care of me. A great guy. His name was Sinister. Forever grateful to that guy for helping me fulfill a fantasy. Well, the thing is, I'm on the ground and now all hell's breaking loose. There's like 5 guys here, 6 guys there. It's the main event. Everyone's going at it. And the referee, he actually worked for TNA at that time. I don't know if he still does. But he comes up next to me and he goes, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, stop smiling. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. And I rolled over on my stomach because I didn't want anybody stuffing on my junk. That was my biggest fear of just getting stepped on, in the crotch. So I rolled over and he goes, you gotta look hurt. I'm like, no, trust me, this hurts. This hurts. He goes, you can't smile. He goes, you got to look hurt. I'm like, no, it hurts. And so he jabbed his thumb in my eye. He goes, now you look like you're hurt. And so they rolled me out of the ring, and I got the Popeye thing going on. I got one eye cinched shut, and I had to drive back from North Carolina the next morning, Myrtle Beach area on the border, back up to the Pittsburgh area, and I couldn't move my neck. And by the time I got to West Virginia, it was just, there was no peripheral vision for me. There was no looking left or right. I'm like, oh, this really set in. So I'm telling you, for anybody who wants to do this, who wants to be a wrestler, you're better off watching it. Just trust me, you'll gain a lot more enjoyment out of it. I give it up to you, Shane. I tell you, no, there went my childhood dream right there. I'm like, I always want to be a wrestler. Man, shit hit the fan. No, I am a consumer, forever consumer. There you go.
Well, you know what? That's what I think is smart business today. Is that we've had so much. Oops, drop the phone. We had so much sanitized out of the business. Mm-hmm. That Vince has taken it back to this. Okay, go out and read this script and go out and do these moves. And micromanaging to such a degree, and then setting up these uber cartoonish characters that, I mean, quite frankly, I mean, tell me from the guys that you worked with overseas in the military, you came back and said, here's Dean Douglas, he's the world's smartest man, 7 PhDs. Or here's the franchise character. Which of those two are they going to watch?
Yeah, they would watch Shane Douglas. I was a fan of Dean, old Dean Douglas, and I'm glad that guy got his ass kicked in Syracuse, New York, and because you deserve the title, my friend.
Well, you know what? I was glad, because people bring up to me all the time, and I've reached a point in my life where, I've learned to let the past go because it was consuming me.
Yeah.
And instead of living my life and enjoying my kids and, seeing the sunrise and the sunset and smelling the flowers, I noticed that I was spending a shitload of my time, paying attention to dumb stuff that I had no control over and didn't have any bearing on my life one way or the other. But looking back, like the Dean characters, there was a point in my life and my career where that was a real sore subject to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dean character, looking back on it, I can see where they got the concept, although I don't agree with the way they came up with the idea.
Right.
But, coming out of that character, the franchise, that was, by today's standards, they would say it was an iconic character, a game-changing character in the wrestling business.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was the first one to go out and really cut those national, shoot promos as if they were everything to shoot today.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I was saying then came from the heart, and it came from a real place. There was, Paul didn't give me a script and tell me to read this. And when I went to be the Dean character, left very reluctantly from ECW. And I remember that one of the first times, it may have been the first time, but I know it was early on in my time in WWF. I get in front of the camera, and I'm known for my promos, and I can deliver a promo.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 or 2 bullet points you want me to say, and I'll work it into a skating promo for you, no problem. And I get in there, and instead of a camera lens looking at me, I see a picture of myself looking back at me on a teleprompter. And I said, well, what's that? And they said, well, the lens is right behind it. I said, okay, no problem. And they start counting me down, 5, 4, 3. And as I get ready to start my promo, here come words scrolling up on the TV screen. And I said, stop. I said, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
They said, that's your promo. I said, what do you mean it's my promo? I said, it's your script. I said, that wasn't a script. Are you kidding me? I said, I know how to do this. And they said, well, try it one time. I said, okay, well, I'm the new kid here, so I'll go along and try to be Mr. Nice. I'm going to play by the rules. And I said the first line, and I stopped it. The first line was something like, Razor Ramon, you're nothing but a street urchin. That ring is my classroom. When I get you in the ring, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I said, stop right there. I'm not saying that kind of cornball crap. It's garbage.
Yeah.
I know how to talk about Razor Ramon. I can do a promo. And that's the crux of what I think, Sean, is wrong with the business today. If I say to you, you need to go out and read this script and do only these moves and nothing else, you couldn't possibly conceptually come up with a character as riveting as the franchise was. I certainly couldn't have. If Paul had micromanaged me to that degree, I could never have done it. And, to me, there comes a time when you have to say to yourself, if I say, Simon J., I want to hire you to be one of my lead talents.
All right.
Then obviously I must have seen something in you that I like.
Yeah, and
I would have hired you in the first place.
That's a good point. It's something I never thought of. Being a fan of wrestling and seeing how things have gone and changed and whatnot. How could a performer, how could a wrestler back then be hired by the WWF? Like you said, they must have seen something they liked in you to bring you on board. Then how could that be changed completely? Because there are some crappy gimmick characters at that time that were really good wrestlers, like guys I saw growing up, like in WCCW or like Smoky Mountain, UWF, stuff like that. And it's like, these guys are really good. Now, what the hell are you doing here? I'm not
Right.
stupid. Like that, something changed. Like,
Yeah.
How I don't see the business aspect as entrepreneur. I don't see the good side of it for business, of any business.
Nor do I. I've always been perplexed by it. The example I always give is, if I'm a coach in the NFL, and I said, okay, I'm going to hire Ben Roethlisberger because he's a great scrambler, he has a great arm, and he's got incredible instincts. I've seen a dozen times in Ben's career where he's being chased around the backfield, and out of no place, he'll take off running, and then he stops with his toes literally on the line that he can't see, this line of scrimmage, and throws the ball for some big game. Now, the first couple times, he got lucky. But when you see him do it a dozen times in 10 years, if not sooner, you realize that's a gift. That's a special gift.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I've seen the other side of that gift. I'm a Bills fan. So.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just using it as an example.
No, I know what you mean. But yeah, so no NFL coach would want to say, "Hey, Ben, we're going to bring you on board. See, that thing you do with your toes, don't do that. Don't scramble. Just stand there and throw the ball.
Exactly.
Like we tell you to throw the ball.
Just stand in the pocket and throw it, because that's the system that we have." And that's what Vince is pretty much trying to do. I thought when I was talking to Steve earlier today, I said, what would the wrestler in me, the wrestling fan in me, begs to ask the question. These kids today that are far more athletic than I ever was, than Steve ever was, and conversely, we were more athletic than Bruno's generation was. But what would these kids today be doing if they weren't being micromanaged by a system? Read this script, do these moves. These kids today are incredibly athletic, and my question is, what would they be doing if they were brought in under the same type of regime that we had coming into the business? Cowboy Bill Watts standing with his hands on his hips, ready to chew you out if you screwed up at all. And I'm not saying yelling and screaming is necessarily the way to go,
right,
but I have to imagine to myself, what could a Seth Rollins accomplish with his athleticism?
That was the guy I was thinking of it as you're explaining this. I had Seth Rollins in my head, because that's somebody I'd like to watch. I don't really like to listen to, though, just because when you hear somebody say John 15 times in a 30-second promo, it's like, he didn't think of that. Even if you're nervous, like scared to death nervous, you're not going to, that's not a normal pattern. Even in nervousness, that's a script.
Bingo.
And it's like, okay. Aside from wrestling, I might know a little bit more because of what I've done, what I do, and what I go to school for and stuff like that. So I could pick up little nuances like that. When the unassuming fan starts to figure that out and realize that that's when you kind of know you got a problem. And then that's, unfortunately, that's when people are really turned off by the product, whether it's wrestling or any product. And it's like you said, somebody like Seth Rollins, it's like, I want to pay so bad to see him like be amazing. And right now it's like, you're getting half of it. Physically, you're getting it. Promo-wise, not so much.
Right. What would he accomplish if he weren't being held under somebody's thumb? Now, don't get me wrong. All of us need direction to sit there and tell us. There wasn't a wrestling star you've ever watched, and the biggest name you've ever loved, not one of them has ever stepped into the business knowing it and getting it all. They all needed tutelage. They all needed direction. They all needed somebody to sit there and say, get your head out of your rear end and stop doing 100 moves in a minute, whatever the direction might be. But to me, I look back and I look at these guys today and I think, I always preface my interviews by saying, I hope the kids today understand I'm not crapping on them. My heart bleeds with them because I can't imagine being that talented and that athletic
Mm-hmm.
and being told, go out and do this and this and this and read this, and then that's it. You know, and, you know, I, as a wrestling fan, as a mark of my business, I would love to sit back and watch somebody like that, you know, just go out and do what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bottom line is this, that wrestling is an art form. And until we finally sit back and settle on that, when I say we colloquially, because it ain't me, but until Vince sits back and says, you know what, Shane Douglas might not be my cup of tea, but he's pretty damn good at what he does. And this guy is my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put in, until he allows that latitude for Shane Douglas to be different from Silent J, and both of us could still be good, that I think we're going to keep seeing what you see. You know, it's just a sanitized product that, you know, again, you know, I do these interviews all the time, and you know, the thing that it always comes back to is the ability to suspend your disbelief.
Right.
You don't need to know how Shane Douglas touched the lady in half to make the magic trick and compelling. If I take a lady on stage and I cut her in half and pull the two sides of the box aside, and you see her fingers and toes both moving, you go, holy shit, that's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
And,
you know, I was watching TV last night with my girl. We were watching the show, and I said, you know, the suspension of disbelief, because there was something on there. It's just like, ugh, I know I'm watching like a sci-fi-esque show, but there's no reason and explanation for that. So why'd you do that? You know, there was no continuity in it. And, you know, I even TV, it's like, no, that's not no, that happened wrong. That's wrong. And I could imagine just you as one Mr., you know, the pit, as I would say back in the 90s, the Pittsburgh badass, Shane Douglas, you as such a top-notch performer, watching, you know, like as a fan, I could see certain things. It's got to be infuriating and frustrating at the same time as somebody of your stature, watching the same product and being able to see it, you know, with a clearer lens.
Sure.
You know, it's, you know, with that being said, do you think you see, you know, ebb and flows of the industry, you know, the ups and the downs? You know, the 70s was different from the 80s, different from the 90s. Like, what do you think the next peak, you know, or the next up can be? I think there's an up to a certain degree, but as a performers, as an up, what do you think's going to need to be that spark, to, you know, to be that change for the industry?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the history, as some of your listeners may not. Mm-hmm. In wrestling, when wrestling was at its peak, when WCW, WWF then, WWE now, mm-hmm. and ECW were all rolling, there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 48 million to 52 million fans watching every week. Last week, we had about 3.5 million watching. So what happened is there were 49 million fans. They didn't get sucked up by a UFO. And,
yeah, they didn't. They didn't disappear.
Yeah, I certainly hope that the rapture didn't happen.
I was just gonna say, we're the, you know what, if the rapture happened, we're the ones that are screwed. Yeah, well, you can see who the sinners are.
You know, we've been left behind, and we're left with Vince's WWE. Holy hell, we're really in hell, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, so when you look at any kind of number and you say, if Walmart went from 52 million customers per month or per week, and suddenly they're down to 5 million, allowing the discretion that the number was nowhere near that high for most of the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. But let's say they went from 50 million to 5 million. My guess would be that Walmart officials would be slicing heads far before it got that severe. And yet our business has allowed, there's been a double, how would you say it, a double whammy on our business, a double injustice done to our business. At the same time that Vince took us down to cartoon land, along came the UFC and shoot fighting, mm-hmm. that took the best parts of what I consider professional wrestling and took it and sanitized it and said, okay, now we have guys beating the snot out of each other. And it's a great I love the UFC. I love MMA. I love Bellator. I can watch any of it. But I got to be honest, the first match I ever watched of UFC 20 years ago looks exactly, with some minor delivery changes, than it looks today. It's just different guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same product over and over and over again. What I always loved about professional wrestling was the serial aspect with an S. The serial aspect of wrestling, that what is Shane Douglas saying this week? What's the franchise saying next week and the week after that? Well, Taz is going to shut his mouth up. And the serial aspect that kept you coming back week to week. And the believability of the characters. You look at Taz, Pete Sinercha, the suplex machine. And
that guy
he's
scared me.
believable in my book,
yeah,
from top to bottom.
That guy scared me, even after the haircut. It was a little silly with that hairdo. But afterwards, it's like, yeah, and that was the thing. I was old enough to know that this isn't, these aren't the boogeymen. I wasn't, as a little boy watching the Iron Sheik, I was scared that somebody was going to get their eye poked out by his curly boots. And I always wondered as a little kid, why aren't those boots illegal? Someone's going to poke their eye out. This,
right.
The forever grandmother in me. But then, growing up, teens, 20s, watching ECW, it was like, okay, I know to a degree, I know what's real. I know, who these people are, what they're made out of. But I was scared. I guess there was a higher level of fear, because you see somebody like Taz, like, holy shit, that guy's legitimately scary. He doesn't even need any boots to scare the hell out of you, or shoes for that matter. And then you see there were just certain guys. Then you see like the Benoits, the Malenkos, Guerrero, stuff like that. It's just like, holy cow, these guys don't need to stop at all. They could go for 20, 25 minutes straight, not stop at all.
Right.
I'm trying to rewatch ECW in its entirety, and the part I'm at now, where Sandman is holding the title. He's the world champion, and man, I tell you what, I get a kick out of you because you don't seem happy in that time, because he has the title. Or and who's the other one involved? Mick Foley, Cactus Jack is involved, and then you got Dean Malenko and you got Chris Benoit. Kind of in the mix, and watching that as a fan, even now, knowing how it all played through, even now I'm watching him like, God dang, I'd be pissed if I was Shane Douglas, because I'm looking at the Sandman. I'm like, I'd be embarrassed if that was the pinnacle of my industry, and people looked up to him, not me. So even now I feel infuriated for you, Shane Douglas. 20 years later, I'm like, that Shane Douglas, he's the wrestler. I don't know what the Sandman is. Why does he have the belt?
If you put it in context, though, Silent J, and you look at it, take a step back and look at it from a character standpoint. The franchise in his head believes that he's the world's greatest wrestler. There's nobody on his level. And now he's looking at a guy in the ring who swings a stick, who couldn't wrestle his way out of a wet paper bag.
Yeah.
And yet, he's a champion. He reflected to the fans what they were. He was one of them. They were one of him. It was all the same thing. And so you've got this big mouth guy saying he's all that in a bag of chips over here. And yet this guy that we love is the champion. That makes you hate that guy over there saying that he's all that in a bag of chips all the more.
Yeah.
And so it fits into the structure. Today, Vince wouldn't allow that to happen, because he would say, no, Sandman's a champion. Everybody has to gush over him. Everybody has to just look up to him and love him. Well, if you've ever met athletes, and I'm sure you have in your life,
yep,
every athlete believes they're as good or better than the guy that's better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the franchise character, it made perfect sense to make that point.
Yeah,
this guy's
that was
nowhere near on my level.
Yeah, and that was the embodiment. I'm freaking got cotton mouth right now for talking too much. That embodied the spirit of ECW. The fact that you had Shane Douglas, who was, the franchise, the perfect guy on the mic, just looked amazing, and then you had you had the guy with the beer and the stick and the cigarettes, and he was the champ. So that's like to me ECW in a nutshell. It was like the, I hate to use cliches, but it's like the little guy who was kicking the Perfection's ass in terms of ECW going up against WWF and WCW. Those two were supposed to be that was perfect. That was the pinnacle. But all of a sudden, this, the one that nobody really cared about, it was like that was must see. So it was. Do you think you'll ever get something like that? Not an ECW, as a footprint, but something like that coming back to just really spark.
I think that ebb and flow is going to take it back there anyway. I mean, look, ECW was lightning in a bottle, and to sit there today, I hear fans coming up at conventions and matches and signings and stuff, and they'll say, "Man, you guys were the greatest ever. You guys were," and you can see it in their eye and the way they're saying it. Their thought is that ECW was the perfect wrestling company. There was never a bad night. Every match was a 5-star match. And that wasn't the case. I was there, and I was in a lot of the matches that weren't 5-star matches.
Yeah.
But, it's in hindsight, to me, what it screams out is that the wrestling fans are dying for something. So they look back to ECW as the last big non-corporate entity starting up, and say, I love that. And so in my mind, I'm going to aggrandize it. The wrestlers were all perfect. They were all 10 feet tall. Every match was perfect. Every night was perfect. And it was far from that. I'm thankful the fans think that way, but you can never live up to that legend because we were far less than that in reality. But it tells me that the fans are looking and dying for something else. They want something other than the WWE cartoon that's been handed to them. And, of those 52 million fans that used to watch, a vast portion of those, there might be a handful that might have died off, but for the vast portion, they're out there. And nostalgia, to me, Silent J, is a powerful drug. Everybody knows my problems with OxyContin back in the day. Nostalgia is 100 times more addictive than OxyContin was. And so in hindsight, when you hear people talk about ECW, and they give all this glowing, perfect praise, it was the greatest company ever, it was all these things, it was far from that in reality. So, but the takeaway to me is if you say you're going to go out and be the next ECW, you're going to fail miserably, even if you're twice as good as we were.
Right.
Because the legend of ECW is so large today, you'll never live up to that.
Yeah,
nobody could.
And like you said, it's had quite a few years to become that, to reach that legendary status, and it was the perfect product at the perfect time. Not just going up against the other two federations, but also like you guys really did have your fingers on the pulse of society and culture and counterculture at the same time. The 90s was a really weird time. And I don't think you could get away with, you definitely couldn't get away with 95% of what was going on. But I just think culture as a whole, I don't know what you would have as a product to embody all different aspects of society, the way you were able to at that time in the 90s. I just don't think anything like that'll work where it's a cultural phenomenon. I just think it had to be something completely different.
To be clear, you couldn't post 9/11. You couldn't possibly have guys going out and cutting the fucking music and, the women getting bumped and, Francine getting power bombed off the top rope through a table and the barbed wire matches. I think TV's become really shy about doing that kind of stuff. But I firmly believe in the power of professional wrestling when it's done right. And like I said earlier about letting these kids go and letting them do what they do and letting them learn their craft and exhibit their craft. To be fair, they'll make a million mistakes along the way. So did I. So did Flair. So did Steamboat. So did Harley Race. So did Stone Cold Steve Austin. But we learned from those mistakes. And on the other side of those mistakes, we became much better performers than we were beforehand. And these kids aren't being given that luxury of learning their craft. But, back to your original question about, do I see something else coming back? I know something else is coming back. There's a huge push to get back to the business that we remember. Watch Monday Night Raw. If anybody listening, watch Monday Night Raw this coming Monday. And then ask yourself some simple questions as you're watching it. Watch how many times the babyface throws the first punch or kick. Illegal. So what makes the bad guy the bad guy? Is the announcer saying it? Watch how many times they turn their back on their opponent or to the hard camera. 101 in our business.
Yeah.
And then count up on a tablet. Just take and do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Count up how many real wrestling moves you see during 3 hours of Monday Night Raw this coming Monday. And that's what I really believe, and I've heard it from fans everywhere I go, Silent J. For the last 7 years, I've been back out on the independent scene and doing Comic-Cons and conventions and autograph signings. And every single fan I talk to, there's been no percentage. It's not 95-5, 50-50, 60-40. Every fan you talk to says, if I could see something like, and then fill in the blank. If they grew up in the Philadelphia region, they'll say ECW.
Mm-hmm.
If they grew up in Oklahoma or Louisiana or Texas, they'll say UWF or Mid-South. If they grew up in Florida, they'll say Florida Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA. But every single answer beckons back to the exact same thing. They want to see professional wrestling, period. They don't want to see sports entertainment. They don't want to see 95 flippity flops and land on your feet and do this and do that and everything else. They want to see professional wrestling. They want to see the realistic character. They want to see the believable storyline. They want to see the angle that grabs them by the balls. And they want to go watch two great athletes perform what they've prepared to perform. Nothing less. And Vince gives you none of that.
But yeah, definitely. I try to watch, because after this I do a show, a wrestling show with a couple guys. We do like a weekly rundown of wrestling, and I try to watch the replay of Raw last week. This past Monday, and I fell asleep. And I know precisely what moment I fell asleep, because I tipped my head back. I'm like, oh, this is fucking boring. And I fell asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and it had replayed. It was a loop to like whatever. It was SmackDown then. It was on Hulu or one of those things. And I looked up, and it was a different show. And I swear it was almost the same exact thing. It was just like, and I started singing Time Warp from Rocky Horror Picture Show on the way to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I remember doing the Time Warp.
There you go. Speaking of great movies, I spoke with Cody. I had Cody Knotts on before he came on, Shane. And I remember watching or reading something or watching something online or somewhere. I don't know where exactly it was, about this movie called Wrestlers vs. Zombies. And I'm like, I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, I love both. I love wrestlers and I love zombies. My daughter and I, we watch both. We consume. I think she's watched more George Romero movies than any other kid under the age of 10.
Smart kid.
Yeah, she's a good kid. And so I saw strippers versus whatever it was, zombies versus strippers like 8 years ago. I'm like, that was okay. Wrestlers versus zombies. And then I keep hearing stuff like, oh, it's really good. And then I had no idea Cody was the brains behind that movie. And I also didn't realize you were in it. So I feel bad for not knowing any of that stuff. So I should email Cody, and I'm like, hey, what site can I illegally download that off of? But I'm gonna watch that afterwards. How was that for you, going from wrestling? I don't want to keep you too much longer. I've already had you for over an hour, and I'm sure you got other things to do. But how was it going from wrestling into acting? Was it a smooth transition for you? Did you have those nerves? Like you said, you still get those nerves when you climb into the ring, because you want to put on a good performance. How was the butterfly feelings and whatnot, being behind the camera in a different aspect?
Well, it was a huge difference. For me, it was like going back into time warp, because as a young kid breaking into wrestling, I'm in the dressing room watching guys like Jim Duggan and Roddy Piper and, you know, a host of others, you know, just iconic names in our business.
Mm-hmm.
I would sit back and I'd watch them, how they'd prepare for their matches and how they'd go out and implement their matches and execute, and how they'd come back and, you know, go through the whole thing. I'd sit and I'd watch and I'd absorb. And when we got on the Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, I, you know, knew that Roddy had extensive experience acting.
Yep.
I'd never been in front of a camera acting out a role. I was always as a wrestler. And I certainly felt comfortable in front of a camera. That part didn't intimidate me. But I had never gone out and, okay, here's your lines, and this is what you have to say, and you have to, you know, execute it as an actor and play out this particular scene. And I'd never done that. You know, that was something I'd never done. And so for me, it was like going back in a time machine, because here I was again at the end of my career, a lengthy career, and I'm suddenly watching Roddy Piper again. How's he preparing for this scene? What's he doing? What's he putting himself through? How's he getting himself into the mindset of that scene? And so it took me back to being a kid again.
Right. I was just gonna say you're in wrestling school again. You know, all over again.
Here I am. I'm back to being the young snot-nosed kid in the dressing room again, and it really felt the same way. Roddy acted the same way. I mean that in the sense that he acted to the rest of us in the room. He knew that he was the guy that had done it, and we were all looking up to him. And it really was like going back in a time machine back to 1982 for me. And suddenly here I am, the young snot-nosed kid again, trying to learn and watching a professional do what he does. And from that standpoint, it was a hell of a lot of fun, and it was a lot of hard work. I knew that making a movie must be a lot of hard work. I mean, just looking at it and knowing what I know from wrestling. But I had no idea until we had actually done it. And, you know, the multiple takes and the the lighting wasn't right, or so-and-so in the background there didn't hit his cue, or whatever. I mean, it was a million takes, and I loved every second of it. I absorbed it. To me, it was just completely what I was hoping to get out of it. When Cody Knotts first contacted me, it's a sort of a small world story, because Cody Knotts and I had gone to the same college.
Okay.
I was a senior at Bethany College when he was a freshman. I didn't know him on campus. I was already wrestling at the time, so I was fairly well known on campus. Plus, I was president of the student government and was quite involved on campus. And he came up to me about 4 or 5 years ago, I lose track of time, at a convention up here in Pittsburgh, and he introduced himself and told me what he was doing, and, you know, said, you know, I'd like to, you know, talk to you more about it. And only out of respect, because we had both gone to Bethany, did I give him my email. Because I honestly believe, you know, we in wrestling, we hear this story almost daily. I got a great idea for a movie. I got a great idea for a TV show. I got a great idea.
I got the next great idea, the next big deal.
Yeah, and 99.9% of the time, they turn out to be the next big stupid idea. And so I gave him my email, thinking I'd never hear from him again. About 3-4 months later, he emailed me the first rough draft of the script. And what stood out at me was I'd read a million scripts before. My brother's a set designer, a top-level set designer in Hollywood, and I'd read many scripts before, but I'd never seen a script where verbiage for particular characters was in red. It was in different ink than the rest of the script. So I called him and I asked him, you know, why is my verbiage and Roddy's verbiage and, you know, this person and this person, why is their verbiage in red? And he said, well, because that's the gist of what I want you to say. I can't possibly begin to write the franchise's script for him or Roddy Piper's script. That's the gist of what I want you to say, but I want you to say it how Shane Douglas would say it, how Roddy Piper would say it, how Jim Duggan would say it. And that's what gave me the insight that he respected us and our profession enough to trust us enough to go out and deliver. And that, at that point, is when I began to contact, Roddy and Duggan and Kurt Angle and the other guys that had just come on board, Matt Hardy and Redley Sky, and a whole lot of local talent, incredibly unknown local talent. And that's what, then the next hurdle to get over was raising the money. It's not cheap to make a movie in any sense. So that was the next thing. He'll never come up with the money. And 4, 5, 6 months later, he called and said he was getting money in line. So this thing sort of slowly built over about a year and a half process. And then when we finally got on site in Parkersburg, West Virginia to make the movie, the magic that I told you about earlier sort of fell into place. We're on site, and it was sitting back and watching Roddy Piper, do what he knows how to do, and we all followed his lead. And it was a really great experience. I mean, to be fair, Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies is not Gone with the Wind, but it's not meant to be.
Right.
It's meant to be exactly what you as a wrestling fan would love and appreciate about Roddy Piper and Shane Douglas and all the characters I mentioned. And I think in that sense it achieves what it's supposed to. What it's supposed to for a low budget movie.
Yep.
It's Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies.
Yeah, not everything's going to be the Budapest Hotel or the next Birdman. Sometimes it's those guilty pleasures that are sometimes the most fulfilling. They live. I'll still watch that any day of the week. With one Mr. Roddy Piper, because it's got a story. There's I hate to sound like a dope, but there actually is a pretty interesting message behind that. And sometimes some of these offbeat, B-rated movies, call it what you will, campy, cult classic-esque movies. Sometimes there's a really good message behind that. You just take, for example, the first Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
If you watch the making of that movie with George Romero and all the stuff involved in that movie, you understand what he was trying to tell. Now, maybe the message may not be so deep with wrestlers and zombies battling it out, but you never know. Sometimes just some of the most fulfilling movies are some of those, the campy ones, the guilty pleasures. That's what I'm going to do. I'm watching it Sunday. And it's crazy. I was stationed down in that area when the movie was being filmed. I was 2012, 2013. I was in southwestern Pennsylvania with the Army. That was my last duty assignment before I came back home. And it's so even to see some local landmarks that I might be familiar with. But, I know that. Yay. It does absolutely nothing for the listeners now listening. Like, oh, great. Silent J is going to be able to pick out a bridge that he drove over. But for me, it's going to feel like I'm part of the movie by saying, yeah, I did drive over that bridge. Before I let you go, I've had you on quite a bit of time, and I don't want to monopolize your time. Do you have anything coming up in the future? Conventions, shows, anything to do with film or television? Anything like that that you like to plug?
Well, I go out. I'm out about every weekend. I go out this coming weekend to. Let me think here. I'm in Lancaster Championship Wrestling this Saturday, and Sunday I'm going to be down in West Virginia working on some shows. I've stayed in control of my schedule because I don't want to be, as a father, I've missed enough time with my kids when they were infants. I want to spend as much time with my kids as I can, but from all appearances, I will be wrapping up my in-ring career, my career in front of the camera sometime this year, because we're getting ready to launch this new company that will bring back all of these things that we've talked about, bringing wrestling back to wrestling, the believable characters, and trying to go out and garner some of those 48 million fans that have walked away And that was all made possible, believe it or not, through Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. I met a businessman who has an incredible resume, was instrumental in creating the technology behind Lycos and LinkedIn. And but the earth-shattering part about this, Alan J, is when he came to me with this idea of starting a new wrestling company, the earth-shattering idea to me as a wrestler was that he wants to name the wrestlers as employees, provide them with health insurance, medical, dental, vision, short-term and long-term disability, profit sharing, and retirement plans.
You know, somewhere out there, Jesse Ventura is smiling right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine in the year 2015 that professional wrestling somehow still falls to the cracks, and it doesn't matter. You come to work for me, you fall and break your back. Oh, sorry, nice knowing you, kid. See you later. It's hard for me to imagine that happening, but that's what's going on in wrestling today and has gone on. I think it's high time. And aside from that, I mean, I can get on my soapbox for a second about professional wrestlers, and everybody would say, of course he's saying that he's a professional wrestler. But aside from that, as a wrestling fan of a mark of the business, I want to see wrestling that I can turn on and sink my teeth into, suspend my disbelief and get into. Has nothing to do with doing 95 moves in 36 seconds.
Right.
It has to do with you reaching out and grabbing me by the balls and having me tune into what it is you're doing and what you're selling. And if you do that, you got a fat old franchise loving what you're doing. I don't see the business doing it today, but that's what we're going to be doing with this new company, and we'll should be making the announcement sometime by September.
Nice. Well, I tell you what, I'm just up to 90 and just south of Buffalo, and I mean this wholeheartedly. I've been writing for a long time, going to film school, all that fun stuff. Been doing radio. I would be honored to just watch you guys set this up. I would love to drive down just to watch you guys and just see how this is formulated. It's always been a passion of mine. And I tell you, I'll even pay my own tolls. I'm not going to ask you for toll money on the 90. But I definitely want to see your last match. So whenever you're ready to announce that, whenever it is, wherever it is, I will definitely be there to watch one of my pro wrestling heroes and somebody I always enjoyed. I would love to see you make that transition from one point of your career to the other, and saying I was as a fan, I was a part of seeing you in that transition. So
thank you. I mean, it looks like it's going to be pretty soon. I was in a match 2 weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago, and it's the first time I've ever done this without knowing. I was sliding out of the ring and leading into the easy match, a 6-man tag, and I felt like a bee sting in the back of my hand. I looked down expecting to see a splinter or a piece of glass in the back of my hand, and I see my hand, the back of my hand, from my knuckles to my wrist, swelling up and turning purple and black. I broke a bone in my hand and never felt it. So really? I think that's the real delineator. It's time to start wrapping this up in ring and starting to move somewhere else a little safer in the ring and sit back and watch these young athletic kids tear the house down, because I know that's what they're going to do.
I'm with you. 15 years in the service today, I'm like, I got a bad back. My knees are killing me. I'm in the bathtub in the middle of the afternoon before class, soaking in Epsom salts. My girlfriend's knocking on the door. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm soaking in the tub, and she was
soaking. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm watching a documentary about the rise of the monarchies in England and in the British Isles. Soaking my knee and my lower back in scalding hot, salty water, and I'm with you on that one.
It's called getting older, kid. That's what that means.
Yeah, unfortunately. But anyway, you know what? With age comes wisdom, right? Is that what they say?
I believe that. Hopefully, let's hope that's right.
I'm still waiting for that windfall of wisdom, but Shane. I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's as a fan, it's a dream come true. As a broadcaster, it's an honor to interview somebody that's able to talk. I've had some I've interviewed some duds before. I had a conspiracy theorist on. I asked him about his conspiracies and whatnot. He's like, I can't really talk about that. I don't know. I'm like, holy, really? So you made this an easy and enjoyable show for me as a fan and as a host. And so anytime you want to come back on, you're more than welcome to. And like I said, whenever and wherever and however soon your last in-ring performance is, I will definitely be there. I don't care how far I have to drive. I am definitely gonna be able to. I'm gonna witness that with my own two eyes. So
I appreciate it.
I'll be the guy with the microphone and a green lucha mask on. So easily spottable.
So if we do it, we'll do it right and invite you in the right way. But I want to take a second just to say, I've always been a huge supporter of the military. First and foremost, because my father was a Silver Star and double Bronze Star recipient in World War II. And I never did it until he died.
Oh, wow.
I was going through his, I don't know military insignia because I've never been in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend of mine who was going through my dad's foot locker, and he looked at me about halfway through. He said, "Your dad was a hell of a soldier."
Hell yeah.
And he explained to me what that meant. And but for you and for anybody else out there listening, screw me. I'm a screwball and idiot. But for my kids, thank you for your service for keeping us safe. Because I know it becomes like a sort of cliche and a sort of soundbite, but somebody that's traveled the world extensively and have seen how crazy the world can be. I've got two sons in this world. If I die in a plane crash tomorrow, don't anybody shed a tear I've had in my life. I got two boys that I want this world to be safe for, that can grow up and follow their dreams the same way that I've been able to. So for you guys that do it and have done it and continue to do it from the bottom of my heart of hearts, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Shane. And I gotta say, your father being a Silver Star recipient, that's the third highest honor. Yeah, like your friend was right. Your father was a legitimate, world saving badass. So my hat's off to the veteran.
A real badass.
Yeah, my hat's off to the veteran generation that came before me. Your father, my grandfather. The guys that are getting ready to retire. I got a old mentor of mine. I think he's listening right now. His name's Jay. What's up, Jay? He just recently retired after 30 plus years. So yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
So you hear that, Jay? I said your name twice. I had Davis Jr., a boxer, Olympic gold medalist on, and that was his hero growing up. He was from the other side of Pennsylvania and in the Philly area. So that's twice now, Jay.
So Jay's from the bad side of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he's from the bad side of Pennsylvania.
Completely talking about my rear end, Jay. I love Philadelphia, and I'm from Pittsburgh, so I got to take that little shot when I can get it.
No, it's all a difference of sandwiches in the Northeast. They got the Philly cheesesteak. You guys got Manny Brothers. We got beef on weck up in Buffalo. So. But Shane, thank you very much for being on, and love to see you again. Love to see you in the future, and best of luck to you in your future plans and with the promotion, hopefully launching sometime in the future. It sounds like a great thing, man.
I appreciate it, my friend, and I look forward to meeting you. And great being on your show. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, take care, man. Thank you very much.
Good night, buddy. Thank you.
That was and is and always will be the legendary Shane Douglas. No matter how you chalk him up, that guy is that guy is awesome. I'm literally like shivering and shaking from being able to interview Shane Douglas. I don't get like that when I interview people. 99% of the time, it's just, to me, it's, it's whatever. It's a job, or it's a hobby. It's a career. It's whatever the case may be. It's a form of entertainment for others. But when I watch people getting nervous around celebrities that are interviewing, I'm always like, why do you do that? But then every once in a while, I'm reminded that I too am a fan of certain things. So that was like, goddamn, that was what a rush, if you will. So that was damn, I'm speechless. That's pretty damn cool. I've interviewed some pretty cool people, interesting people, high up people, actors, actresses, politicians, porn stars, military folks, authors, artists, musicians, you name it. Athletes, boxers, hockey players, whatever. You get the picture. NFL players. Only a couple times can I say I was really nervous and excited and a bit of a fanboy. And this was one of the only times I can say that, interviewing one Mr. Shane Douglas. So Shane, if you're still listening, thank you for being on. And now I'm going to wrap things up here now in 30 minutes. Well, 38 minutes. 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know this show's crossed little boundaries a little bit, and I was gonna have Andrea on, but she was doing whatever. F you. We were gonna talk about vacations and stuff like that. Now I got to change the complete description of the show and just wait for all the hits to come in. Bam, YouTube sensation. Bam, bitches. I can. I'm not calling you bitches, singular or plural. Love you. But anyway, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to have Military Press Wrestling, the wrestling show. Kind of like we already did that, huh? With the boys, if you will. The dangerous duo tag team I got, and maybe Tammy's baby boy I'll be on. So 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bets on Sports' YouTube channel. And then if you go to betsonmedia.com, go under the show listings and JD's Rocket Sports, click on that. You'll be able to listen live, or, go on Bets on Media Facebook page, and you'll see the link for Military Press Wrestling. Go to Military Press Wrestling. Also, it's MP Show on Twitter. Go and check that out. But this is Tactical 16 Radio. I am done for the time being for this show. Then I got to host another one, so I gotta let my voice catch up, if you will. All right, but again, holy hell, I got to interview the guy that made Wrestlers vs. Zombies, and I got to interview Shane Douglas. I am officially having the coolest Wednesday night ever in the house. Right, I am. This house, my house. I don't know. You guys might have had way cooler Wednesday nights. So I'm going to get going. Check me out. Check us out on Military Press Wrestling, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. Go to betsonmedia.com, JD's Rockin' Sports. Listen to the show, or Bets on Sports on YouTube. All right, and check it out. So on behalf of everybody here, which is me, I do want to say a couple quick things. Go to tactical16.com. That is tactical, the number 16.com, tactical16.com, for all your veteran reading pleasure. Okay. We publish books written by veteran authors. So go and check it out. Get yourself a book. Also, go to vetsonmedia.com. Check out vetsonmedia.com. Excuse me. What vetsonmedia.com is, it is a network, an online radio network that brings you a shitload of shows produced, starred, and hosted by, whatever the case may be, veterans, current military service members, or military brats. Yeah, somehow, some way, everybody's connected to the military, either by service or a spouse of or a child of, military brats, stuff like that. So go to betsonmedia.com. Also check out ironmikemag.com, ironmikemag.com, and you can check out my articles. Happy Hour of Silent J, I read about cocktails and things of that nature. So go ahead and check those out. And my homeboy on my Sunday night show, Rob's book, go to thepackedbook.com and get the Packed book. Okay, get the book. All right, because I want you guys to buy a lot of his books. So when I go on vacation next month to LA, he can buy dinner because he'll be rich. So go to thepactbook.com and buy one of Rob's books. Buy Rob's book, period. Go to tactical16.com. Buy all the books, all right? You're going to make everybody happy, veterans included and yourself, because the veterans wrote some pretty badass books for you guys to enjoy. All right? So until next week, I'm Silent J, and this is Tactical 16 Radio. Like I said, a 1.5 hour, we are going to have military press wrestling show. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right. Bye-bye.